Any questions or comments on that? No? Okay. So listings bring you buyers, listings bring you sellers, listings bring you marketing opportunities and name recognition, visibility. Listings also bring you the opportunity to leverage inside of your business. When you're working with an A buyer, how much time do you spend with that A buyer? It could be all day Saturday and part of Sunday. It could be 3 or 4 weekends in a row. It could be an evening during the week. You spend a lot of time with that A buyer, right? Shopping for property, going through the motions. How much time do you spend with a seller?
Nowhere near as much.
Right? Far less. Far less. And so one of the really important things to remember about sellers is that they are the leveraged side of the business. Because ultimately, when you are the listing agent, you're popping that sucker on the market. You're doing everything you need to do to expose that property to as many qualified buyers and their agents as possible. And yet, especially in a market like today, like we have today, you're the one receiving the 77 different offers on the property in the first 24 hours, right? You're the one working with the seller to figure out how we wade through all of this interest and find the best possible offer. You're not one of the agents on the buy side standing at the bottom of the hill waving your offer trying to get attention, right? Clamoring up the hill to try and get to the top. If you had to be one of those two people, from a business perspective, which one do you want to be? I know the one I wanted to be, and that was the listing agent, right? So for all those reasons, many people, as they begin to grow a business, begin to leverage out the buy side and have agents who start to either, as a showing assistant, take away the driving part of the buy side, right? So now you have a showing assistant who's going to show the properties for you. You still retain control of the client. You still retain control of the negotiation once the showing assistant has found the property they want to purchase. But the showing assistant gets a portion of that commission for doing all the driving around and doing the finding of the house, right? Or sometimes you go straight into a full-blown buyer's agent. So if I were on Ryan's team and I was a buyer's agent on Ryan's team, well, Ryan handles all the listing side of things, and all those buyers that call in off the listings that he's going out and nailing, they get passed to me to convert on the buy side, right? And then I pay him half the commission back. That's how a buyer's agent works. But you see, when you start to leverage the buy side, you buy back all of your time, because now when you're simply focused on the list side, how many A buyers do you think you can handle at one given moment in time? How many active A buyers at once do you think humanly, without being crazy about it, you can handle? Right? I see 3, I see 4, I see 2, I see 5. So my answer is typically around 5, right? So you're all correct, right? If you have a bandwidth that is impressive, you can probably handle 4 or 5 at a time. More than that, and things start to suffer, right? People feel like they're not getting your attention. You can't show the properties all to the same, because remember, 4 or 5 different people typically all want your time at the exact same time. They all want you on Saturday afternoons or Sunday afternoons. Nobody's all that interested in seeing you at 8 o'clock on Sunday morning, right? So remember that you are limited in terms of exactly how much time you can give to buyers. On the seller side, how many listings do you think you can handle all at one time?
10.
10, 15, 20, right? At some point, you would need administrative help on that. And yet, by yourself, you're probably easily at 10 or 15. I think for me, I was upwards of 20 or 21 before I thought, okay, I think I need to throw in the towel here. And that's not cumulative, right? That's not throughout the year. That's at any given time. When you start, when the momentum builds and you're out there listing, because then all of a sudden, all the administrative side comes crashing down on you. That's what happened to me. I thought, you know what, I'm just going to leave the administrative side over here. I'll get to it eventually. I'm just going to keep listing and listing and listing and listing. Well, then I kept listing and listing, and then buyers would start showing up, and so I'd have offers. And so now I'm working the whole negotiation piece on all these listings. And then you wake up one day and think, oh crap, you know, I kind of forgot to do all the paperwork that I was supposed to do on that. So I was in trouble with my office, and sellers were unhappy because things were starting to fall through the cracks. So at some point on the listing side, administrative help comes in. But other than that, you can handle at least minimally 2, 3, maybe 4 times more business, just you, on the list side than you can the buy side. Have I done a good job in selling you on the list side of the business? Let me ask this. Why is it that agents who are new to the business or who are looking to relaunch their business oftentimes start or find themselves on the buy side of the business from the get-go? Why is that? Jennifer.
Your network of who you know could be smaller at that point for listings, for that lead generation that you might quite not have yet.
Yeah, so your database might be smaller, right? So therefore, the people who are naturally inclined to use you as a listing agent, they might just not have arrived in your database. Although if your database is small, why would we assume then that we're getting buyer leads from that same smaller database? I don't know.
They don't know how to prospect for listings.
Well, so yeah, there's a, who is that, Alicia? Yeah, so there's a conversation, right? What I have noticed is that agents tend to believe that working with buyers is somehow simpler and or easier and or cost less money. Like you have to know more to be a listing agent, but you don't have to know quite as much to work with the buyers. And I will tell you that is false. It's mostly in our heads, right? What we have to remember is it's the same basic skill set on either side. You just get to choose your focus. And what I'm encouraging you to do, now again, we have a market going on right now that is abnormal, right? We have a market going on that's abnormal. Would everyone agree that the market that we have currently on the table is abnormal, right? It's abnormal in that there are so many buyers out there and a shortage of listing inventory that it seems like you could kind of walk out, you know, when you walk out of a building and you're testing for rain and you're kind of going like this. Well, right now when you're doing that, the buyers are kind of, you have to step out of the way. The buyers are falling right out of the sky at you. And so the idea of switching that to sellers today may seem illogical because there's so many buyers out there. What I would offer to you is walk around kind of testing for the rain, because the buyers will fall into your hands. You kind of can't miss them. But take a focus on finding listing inventory. And one of the things that you need to understand about listing inventory right now, there has never been a better time to be a listing agent, right? Your pricing skills can be a little off. And I don't say that to say don't worry about your skill. I'm saying you can, right now you can afford to be a little bit off. It doesn't have to be quite as pinpoint accurate as it did 3 months ago. Because what we know is that properties are selling at multiple offers, oftentimes over asking price, right? Because they're fighting for them. So if you can locate listings right now, hey John, are you there? Yes, you are there. What happened with that condo that you listed?
The appraiser's going there on Thursday morning, but I listed it on Thursday night. The first showing was a half hour later. That lady actually commented back that her client liked it, but that it was overvalued. And it was. My client, which was my mother, she wanted to list it at 270. The last condo to sell there sold back in May for 259. And it was fully finished, like fully updated, bathrooms, kitchen, new cabinets, modern, the grays, everything was nice. Now, I guess maybe that it closed in May, maybe it was under contract a few months earlier. So maybe that was before the whole bump up. But, that first agent said it was overvalued but gave me the information that their client liked it. And if I did receive an offer, to let her know, because she would have her client bid at that point, but she didn't want to be the first one in at like a market offer. That next day, somebody saw it and they made an offer that same night. So that was Friday night. Saturday morning, talked to my mother about that. It was an offer for 258. She said, well, let's just counter with 260 and call it a day. And I was like, no, because there could be another offer out here. Let me contact this lady. I contacted her. Long story short, I ended up countering. Before I got another offer, I countered because the second person actually revealed to me, like you were talking about the other day, they revealed that their client wanted their son to go to Glastonbury High School. This is a condos up in Glastonbury. And that they were anxious to get in there, by September. They wanted a September closing date, all this other stuff. So I felt it was a really good offer. And I felt like if I countered relatively close to the original listing that they might bite. So I countered with 266. And within a couple hours, they said deal. And it was really quick. So it's been moving along. A little trouble with the inspection because of the power outage. They had to go 2 different days. But that's all set now, and so there it goes.
Awesome.
Yep.
So here's my point. My point in having John tell you that story is that John has been a real estate agent for 27 minutes, right? It's his first listing. Now, John's a smart guy, and he figured it out, but he's been a real estate agent for 27 minutes and sold his first listing at multiple offers in 48 hours. Right? So my point is, and I'm not taking anything away from what John accomplished. The point I'm making is you don't need a ton of experience to do well as a listing agent right now, right? Experience isn't a prerequisite. And so I don't want you to be on this call thinking, wow, you know what, it would be so nice a year from now, once I have my experience and I have all that under my belt, to really start prospecting for listings. Now, just do what John did, right? Everyone call your mother, see if she has a property to sell, right? But just do what John did, take the listing and then figure it out, right? Figure it out. That's not to say that we're not here to help. Right? So if you're struggling figuring it out, then call and we'll help you walk through that. But I really want you to understand that you don't need a ton of experience in order to dive into the list side of things. That's in your head. What you need is a phone and some common sense, and you need to know where to find the paperwork. That's pretty much what you need. And everything else, if you get stuck, we can help you through it. So yes, this is me yet again saying, jump out of the plane and knit the parachute on the way down, right? Knit quickly, but knit the parachute on the way down. Yeah, Jennifer.
Question for you. I don't know, in a normal market condition, let's say, not right now, Do you believe in, I heard Barbara Cochran once say every time that if she lists a listing 10% under current market value, it goes into a bidding war.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that?
My answer is it depends. It depends on the market, right? It depends on the market. Today, the market is moving so swiftly that one doesn't need to do that in order to find multiple offers. If
Right.
you're listing kind of at market value or even slightly above market value, buyers are fighting for things, right? Generally speaking, there's a script that I used to use when people wanted to list higher or list lower, and that's the difference between negotiation and competition, right? So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, do you know the difference between negotiation and competition? May I explain? Well, when you price a property with room for everyone to negotiate, that's exactly what you'll attract. You'll attract buyers who are looking to make offers that then need to be negotiated. When you position a property for competition, well, that's what you then attract. You attract buyers who are looking at that property saying, if I don't make an offer right now, someone else is going to do that. So I'm curious, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, which do you think works better for your bottom line, negotiation or competition? Because of course the answer is competition all day long. When people fight over your property, you do better. Right, and so it's that conversation that, Jennifer, that you're really talking about. Depending on the market, if the market is slow, that's a risky strategy, right? And so it doesn't mean that the seller won't use it, but I would have a conversation around that to say, okay, so Mr. and Mrs. Seller, based on these market conditions which we just went through, and we're going to get to those either late today or on Wednesday in our scripts. Based on the market conditions, I'm curious, do you think that's a strategy that will bring you multiple offers? What if you put it on the market and only one offer shows up? And they're willing to pay your ask price, but now you've already positioned it 10% below market, and only one person shows up to the party. Well, you don't have to sell it, I guess, but then what a waste of time. So I think that you have to know your market, and I think you have to know exactly what the motivation of the seller is. I had a question about a year ago from one of the agents in the office who said the seller wanted to do exactly that. I don't know if it was necessarily 10%, but the seller wanted to come to market below market value. And I said, well, and she called me and said, can I even do that? And I said, well, let me ask this. Did you ask the seller what the motivation behind that decision was? She said, well, yeah, she wants an offer this weekend. She's in a rush. She don't want the property to sit on the market for 6 or 8 weeks. She wants an offer this weekend. Oh, okay. Well, if she wants an offer this weekend, that's probably a good way to get an offer this weekend, is to offer it out to buyers so that they feel like it's a deal. Now, I know that property did sell that weekend. I don't know if it sold at multiple offers or they got at least the one that they were looking for. But a seller's motivation is the other variable in that discussion.
She had said though most sellers don't buy into that. That
Yeah,
they believe that 10%. Yeah.
Yeah, in a normal market, I would agree with her that most sellers would look at that and say, no, I think I'll ask a little bit more just in case only one person shows up to the party.
Right. But she does.
Yeah.
Try. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. All righty. So let's chat a little bit about getting started on the list side. Getting started on the list side. Let me think about this a second. I think what we might do. No, I think we will go this way. So one of the tools that you need to build is something called a pre-listing package. Right? And so if we're talking about the list side of things, before we dive into your appointment or appointments, depending on how you do it, right? Before we start having a conversation around the listing consultation scripts that were sent. What I want to do is make sure that you have the proper tools to send prior to your appointment. And that tool that we're talking about is called a pre-listing package. So John calls me and says, hey, can you come over and talk to me about listing my property? And I say, yeah, absolutely. I have time tonight at 5 or tomorrow at 4:30, which works best for you. And he says, tomorrow at 4:30. Okay, great. The listing pack or the pre-listing package is a document and or document plus that I'm going to have delivered to John's house or his place of business, depending on the permission I get, that goes ahead and introduces me and the business before I ever see him in person. Can you see a benefit to having something delivered before you meet in person? And if so, what are those benefits? What does that pre-listing package accomplish for you?
To establish a level of comfort before you even meet them face to face.
Yeah, it's kind of a get to know me, right? Before you're actually getting to know me. It's a pre-sell is one of the things it is. And as Alicia says, it saves time. We're gonna talk about both of those things as I run you through an example or two of these. Yeah, and professionalism is also the level of professionalism. Imagine if I hang up the phone with John right now at 4:30, and by 6 o'clock or 9 o'clock the next morning, there's a pre-listing package that arrives at his front door. Do you think that says to John, wow, you know what? This guy does this all the time. This is like, there's a system here. That's what it's supposed to send. The message it's supposed to send is that you're part of a bigger world now, baby. This isn't like my first rodeo. And so having these tools in place is really important for all the messages that they send. So let's go through what this thing is, and then we'll have a quick conversation around how you get it there and how you can plus it and all the good stuff that goes along with it. If you had to make a list of the information that you would think would be important to send along in a pre-listing package to help pre-sell you and then save time at the actual appointment, what are the things that you think you might include?
Well, certainly all your specifics, name, phone number, office phone number, history, personal things that you don't have to talk about once you get there because they already know.
It's exactly right. And so Lisa, would it be okay if I called that kind of your contact info plus a resume?
Yes, I'll accept that.
Perfect. So contact info plus a resume as spoken by none other than Lisa Lee, who allowed me to put words in her mouth. One of my favorite scripts as a real estate professional is, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. However, it sounds to me like this is what you're saying, which of course is absolutely putting words in people's mouths, right? But always preface it by, I don't want to put words in your mouth. However, so that's a little trick. If someone's not saying the things that you were kind of hoping they would say when you deliver your lines, you can kind of reorient that a little bit and say, well, it sounds to me, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds to me like you were going right here. And remember, people like to look good and be right. So oftentimes, even if they weren't necessarily going there, there's a version of a redirect that happens because it's like they're being given a hint as to what the right answer is, and people like to know the right answer. So it's a nice way to kind of What else?
Would you include what they should expect as far as for the next meeting? So you kind of get that out of the way as well and can get right down to business when you actually do sit down and meet with them the next day?
Yeah, so I think what I'm hearing is a little bit of process, right? A little bit of here's what's going to happen next. Here are the steps, right? And we're kind of here, and here's the next step, and here's what might happen 3 steps after that, right? So have a bit of process inside of your pre-listing package. John says a description of what makes you stand out. So that's another great answer, right? You want to have some version of who you are and what you do. And so that might be a discussion of highlights of a marketing plan, right? How you expose properties to qualified buyers. You might outline a social media strategy. You might outline an online strategy. You might outline an open house strategy, or that you belong to multiple MLSs, or that you belong to an international MLS, right? Like Proxio. Those kinds of things, right? You may include some homework. Oscar, who is floating in space, says maybe ask what their motivation to sell is, right? And what's so great about that one is it's part of the homework materials that we're going to include for them to complete. So Oscar, I'm going to put a pin in that one and come back to the homework in just a second, but that's exactly right. And then Robbie says other listings that you might already have. So I'm interpreting that as marketing examples, right? So you have properties that you're currently representing where you might have a brochure or some postcards or some other marketing paraphernalia that you would then include to give the seller prospect an idea of what they can expect from you and from your marketing program when they say yes and list with you. So let me ask you this question. What happens if this is your very first listing and you have no other marketing materials? See, Niels, I beat you to the punch. I knew where you were going. I saw it in your eyes. So what happens if this is number 1 for you and you have no other properties, right? Experienced listing agents, we save our old stuff to use for this purpose, to go and get new business with some of the old stuff. What are some of the things that you could do if this is number 1 for you? Go ahead, Lisa.
Well, I would say first, tell them that, they're basically going to have 100% of your time. I mean, it's like an exclusive, exclusivity, but also the power of the company, the power of Keller Williams and the support that we get from Keller Williams, and how successful the company has been, and
Yeah, so you went kind of right there, and then I'm going to hone in on the marketing side of it. The broader discussion that Lisa just put on the table is, what if it's my first time and maybe they ask me about that, right? So I can tell you that from my experience, that question gets asked very, very rarely. So don't live in fear of it. That's number 1. Number 2, even if they do ask that question, you just take a small pivot and you change the pronoun. You move from me or I to my team and I, right? And when you address the conversation with my team and I, you then have the backing of one of the largest real estate organizations in Fairfield County, right? You certainly have the backing of one of the most successful real estate organizations in Fairfield County, right? Our market, if you combine the 2 market centers, they're number 1 in the state. If you separate them out, they're numbers 2 and 10, right? Individually. Combined, they're not only number one in Fairfield County, they're number one in the state of Connecticut, right? And so understanding that you can say things like, my team and I sold over almost 2,000 houses in the past 12 months. We have the know-how to get your home sold too. Trust that our program works. And then you provide stats to show that, right? And we'll talk about some of those as we move forward tonight. But my team and I is a really, really important concept to understand. And you kind of have to internalize that a bit, because sometimes the pushback I get on that is, it seems like we're cheating. It seems like we're lying. Well, if you said, I sold 2,000 homes in the last 12 months, well, then I would 100% agree with that. Please don't say that, because that's not true. My team and I sold almost 2,000 homes in the last 12 months. That is true. You are a part of this team, and your team sold that many houses, right? So get really fluid with that, my team and I. If in fact it's your first listing and you have no actual marketing materials, I'll give you a couple of thoughts. Number one, ask inside of the market center. By next week, because this is just something I asked to be done at the end of last week, by next week, there will be, for your use, in each market center, just versions of more generic type marketing materials. We've asked a bunch of listing agents to give us their brochures from previous listings and strip their name and face off of them. So it'll just say KW. It won't say your name per se, but they don't notice those kinds of things. Sellers aren't looking for a Jennifer Harkins brochure. They're looking for brochures that came from Jennifer Harkins. Those are two different things. Just because it doesn't say your name on it doesn't mean that they all of a sudden think, oh, she must have taken this from someone else in the office, right? That's not information that they have. So certainly utilize the market center. If you have a friend or a relationship in the market center where you can have those done specifically for you, then utilize that. What I did when I was brand new is I just took pictures of my own house and made marketing brochures out of my own house because I had access to my own house. So instead of not having something to show, I just created a listing out of my own house, right? So you can certainly do that. If you're not going to utilize your house, you can use your parents' house, you can use your kid's house, right? Use a bunch of them if you want. If you have no house to use, call me. I'm more than happy to have you come and use mine. Just let me know. I'll make sure that the laundry's put away before you come and take pictures of the inside. Right? So again, it's not a matter of, how do I focus on what I don't have? Let's focus on how we solve the fact that you don't have, right? Create your first listing with your own property or a property of a relative, and then utilize that to obtain more. Because then once you really get your first new listing, well, then you'll have those materials because you'll have taken your first real listing. But until then, just make it up, right? Remember I told you some of this is fake it till you make it? Well, that's one of the versions of fake it till you make it. Nobody else knows it's your house. They just know that you did a cool brochure, right? One of the things that I used to do back in the Stone Age, when you had to order 100 brochures, now you can order them one-off, so it's a whole lot easier. When I would get a listing call, I would drive past the house and take a couple of quick photos of the exterior, and I had stock interiors. And I would order, with the photos of the exterior, brochures for that property with all the stock stuff on the inside and a lovely description. So that they were never back in time for my pre-listing package delivery, but they were usually back in time for my actual appointment. So then at the appointment, I could haul those suckers out to say, and we've already started the marketing efforts on your property, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. These people they don't know me from Adam, right? They received my pre-listing package, and now they're meeting me, and I've already got brochures of their house. Don't get hung up on the fact that the interior were stock photos or somebody else's house. They didn't care. They would look at their house, on pretty pictures on the exterior, and be so excited. Oh my goodness, honey, look, he's already started. And then the conversation would be, one of the things that I would like your input on, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, because this is something real estate agents don't do or say, right? They think, well, this is my job. I have to just do the work. What I used to say to them was, one of the things that I need your input on is how this brochure is going to lay out. Let's talk about the layout of the photos. So this is the style. You can see your house is already here on the front. On the interior, obviously, these would be replaced with photos of inside of your own property. Is this a layout that makes sense for you? And would this satisfy you in terms of how we expose your property to qualified buyers? Do you see how we're already having a conversation about partnership, about working together? Do you see how they're already seeing how I'm not waiting to get hired to start doing the work? I've already started doing the work. It's one of the reasons I was able to close at the table. None of this, we have to think about it stuff, right? Because they looked and saw, okay, well, he's already started. Like, even if we're supposed to see somebody tomorrow, like, he's already started. That's why I used to get the URL with their address on it. And I would show them that I've already purchased that on their behalf, so that we could direct a specific leads landing page right through command to 123mainstreet.com. Oh my goodness, you can do that? Absolutely. And I already own it, right? So it's like I've already, how are they not hiring me? Like, I already own all your stuff. I've taken some pictures, I've built some brochures, I purchased the URL. They're sitting there thinking, well, even if we liked the other guy, well, the other guy doesn't have anything that we need. He has it all. I think we better hire him, right? Do you have a question, David? No? Okay. All right, so I digress, which is par for the course, as I'm sure you have figured out by now. However, pre-listing packages. What else do you think you would include? I'll throw some at you. Testimonials, right? Testimonials. Testimonials always a good thing for people to be reading some cool stuff about you, right? Now, again, if you're brand new or relaunching and you haven't sold a lot of properties, or you've never sold any properties, where are you getting testimonials? Where are you getting someone to say something nice about you?
Friends and family.
Absolutely. Friends, family, right? Many of you are coming from a different work experience. So where are you coming from? Who worked with you then? Did you have clients in what you did previous to real estate? You could certainly take some of that relevant experience, just because it's not specific real estate experience, right? Maybe you negotiated something other than real estate contracts in your previous role. And so someone can say something awesome about your skill in negotiation. Maybe you were in some version of customer service or something like that. Someone could say something cool about you and your level of customer service. So friends, family, former coworkers, if you cannot find anybody else to say something lovely about you, you call me and I will fashion something up so that you can pop it in a testimonial. We'll just hide my last name so no one can connect us. You can count on me, man. I got your back. How much to have me say something about you? I didn't think of that, John, but I like the way you think. I'll come up with a pricing schedule by the end of the call. It depends on how much you really want me to say something lovely. If you want me to gush, it's going to cost you. Something a little more generic might not cost you quite as much, right? So testimonials, a resume, your contact info, some process conversation, some marketing and exposure highlights, where we might feature you. Now remember, you're not giving everything. You never want this package to feel like it's everything, because you won't ever be able to put everything in the package. But it should be substantial enough that people feel like you know what you're doing, and there's a program, a process, a structure when they say yes to you that their home is going to go through. Examples of marketing materials I think are really important. What don't you put in the pre-listing package?
Potential listing price.
Yeah, so anything that has to do with the price, anything that has to do with market conditions, anything that has to do with any kind of positioning conversation. And why is that? There's a very specific reason that I'm looking for. There might be others, but I'm looking for something very specific.
You want to save that for your face-to-face conversation.
That's 110% right. That is your point of differentiation. You are the local economist of choice. You are the market expert. It's what sets you apart, a deep understanding of what's going on and how that affects them and their bottom line. And so if you give that away, by the time you arrive, they've already read it. And what we're going to go through together, these scripts, especially the SPA, which is the pricing and positioning portion of our consultation, you're going to see that it sets you apart all over again. We're going to teach you a version of this that doesn't have you give the seller a price. Now, some of you who have hired real estate agents in the past are thinking, well, how does that work? What do you mean don't give the seller a price? Well, we're going to give them data to help them determine the price on their own. And I promise you, if you will trust that process alone sets you apart from the competition that walks in and tells people what their house is worth. Instead, you're going to walk in and educate and ask in partnership to determine the list price together. Trust me when I tell you that goes far farther than, how many of you, when you were kids, like to be told what to do? How many of you as adults like to be told what to do, right? It's even worse now that you're an adult. So why on earth would we think that walking into someone's home or inviting them into our office and telling them exactly telling them what they need to do in terms of affixing a price to their most valuable asset is something that they actually want from us? It's not. What they want is information. What they want is education. What they want is partnership. What they want is someone who sounds like they know what they're talking about to go through the details with them so they can make the best decision possible. Do you remember 3 weeks ago when I gave you the definition of your job description? And that was to interpret current conditions such that the client can make the best decision possible. Well, this is another one of those areas where you're going to bring the data to the table and help interpret it with them so that they can, at the end of the conversation, make the best decision possible about moving forward and listing the property, and for how much. When it's their decision and not yours, guess what? When the house doesn't sell 2 or 3 weeks later, no one's coming back to you saying, well, you know what, David, you told me this was the number, and now we're sitting and there's no showings. So it removes that whole blame game thing that happens a lot of times, right? Because you didn't choose the number, they did. And so they get to own it, for good, for bad, or for in between. Too many real estate agents want the praise that comes along with being right about these kinds of things. And I will tell you that that's just ego. If you will let that go and be more consultative and allow the client to be as right as possible over and over and over again, it's like the leader who stands in back of the team. And then when someone singles the leader out saying, wow, you did a great job, the leader says, well, I just led these awesome people. They did a great job, right? It's giving the credit away. If you will get better and better and better at that as a listing agent, you will win far more listings, because ultimately sellers are looking for help in making a decision. They're not looking for you to make the decision. Even though some of them say that they want you to make the decision, that's not really true. Because at the end of the day, sellers are smart. Sellers know what the right answer is. They may be looking for you to concur or not. They're not looking for you to do the work for them. This is their most valuable asset most of the time. They want to be a part of this conversation. Because at the end of the day, they trust themselves more than they trust you. Remember, for the most part, they just met you. And for those of you who know the people whose property you're listing, they may have just met you as a real estate professional, right? When John listed his mother's house, well, clearly she has met him before. She's known him for a number of decades. We won't tell them how many decades, John, because I think it's 2, maybe 2.5, right? But clearly she knows him. And it's funny because John and I had this conversation the other day, in the way he addressed his seller client, who also happened to be his mother, right? That wasn't a slam dunk. The story John told me was it wasn't necessarily a slam dunk for him to get this listing. And so what he chose to do is, instead of assume that his mother was just going to list with him, which I think, if I remember the story right, she actually said something to the contrary, right? She said, I have somebody who I may be giving this listing to. His choice over the course of time was to just speak professionally about the market and speak to her about what she needed to get done. And so now all of a sudden, he started to sound less like John, her son, and more like John, a real estate professional. And he convinced her over a couple of weeks that he sounded enough like a real estate professional to give him the business. Did I tell that story right, John? By the way, typically when you tell me stories, unless you tell me they're in the vault, I use them again as much as possible to make points. So everyone should just be aware of that when you tell me stories, right? But it illustrates the point really beautifully. She saw him differently. That's the goal. All right. Let's do this. What I'd like to do is I'd like to show you 2 versions of a pre-listing package. However, I'd like to do that first thing on Wednesday, if that's okay. So let's move from let's have a small tidy up on the pre-listing package. I'll show you 2 examples so it makes better sense to you on Wednesday, but let's dive into the next piece of this with one step versus 2-step listing consultation, so that we can dive into the meat and potatoes before we finish tonight. So your pre-listing package, here's, once it's built, and again, I'll give you 2 foundational examples that you can use, so you don't have to start from scratch. You can start utilizing these and build from there. One of the things that I encourage you to do is have this delivered, physically delivered, not emailed in a PDF. Physically deliver it, because it makes a splashier statement. Now, when I say physically deliver it, what I mean is by someone who is not you. So now you're looking for some leverage here. Why am I encouraging that the person who delivers this package to this potential seller not be you? Yeah, Lisa.
I would say that, first of all, it does not give them an opportunity to start talking to you that night before they go through it and start asking you questions and et cetera. So you're saving yourself for the meeting, face-to-face meeting.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I can't tell you when I was doing this and still delivering my own packages, boy, was I a dope. Because I would stand there on the front door, but I would ring the front doorbell until someone answered and say, well, just wanted to get this to you. And they'd be like, oh, well, you're here. You want to just see the house now? Like, or on the front porch, well, you're here. What's your commission? What do you think the price range is? What's the market doing? So don't put yourself in that position, because if a seller is home, there is a chance that will start to occur. Why else don't you want to deliver it yourself? Go ahead, Donna.
Oh, no, I was just joining back in, sorry.
Well, that's okay. You can answer the question anyway. Just guess at what I asked. You've done this enough times. You probably know. Let's see. It's the 10th session at 5:06. He must have just asked.
How do you get the package there?
Yeah, darn close. I told you she's done this a million times.
Does it make them feel special that you have actually arranged to have someone else deliver something in person to them?
So I love that. I love that, Lisa. And what I would say is it's a version of that. There is a specialness, which the specialness comes from you physically delivering it, right? Just pushing a PDF button isn't as much of a wow factor. The main reason you want someone else to do it is because you want to send the message that you have people for that, right? You have people for that. If your surgeon showed up at your front door to deliver you the stuff that you were supposed to, like the pills you were supposed to take to prep for your surgery tomorrow morning, I don't know about you, but I'd be like, okay, why are you here? Why aren't you home resting your hands or something? Like, why are you doing this? Don't you have people for that? And so creating a perception that you are bigger than you may currently be is part of the idea here. You have people for that. And so who could you use? I'll give you some thoughts. You could use each other, right? Look around on the Hollywood Squares here and see who makes sense for you. And so maybe Robbie and I decide that we're going to deliver packages for each other, right? And so what that looks like is whenever Robbie has I want to find someone who's kind of doing the same amount of business as I am. Because if Robbie's got, 15 appointments in 2 weeks and I have one, right? Well, maybe there's a reason I only have one, because I'm driving Robbie's stuff all over the place and not lead generating on my own. So try and find that balance. So the time that you give is kind of similar to the time that you receive back. But remember, if Robbie and I are going to have an arrangement where we're delivering each other's packages, he needs to know how I want him to behave when he's doing it for me. And I need to be clear about how he wants me to behave when I'm doing it for him, right? Because when I'm delivering his packages, I'm a member of his organization and he gets to make the rules. And so that we get to sit and have a conversation that says, okay, so what if someone's at the door? What if they start asking me questions? How do you want me to respond? And we'll have that clarity between the two of us so that we're representing each other's businesses properly. Robbie may have a very different idea about how he wants his business represented than I do. And so as long as we're clear about what that looks like, and when I'm doing for him, I'm doing it his way, and when he's doing for me, he's doing it my way, then we're all good. You could have a relative, a spouse, perhaps a late teen or adult child that maybe still lives with you, right? I don't necessarily encourage like the paper route version of that. So younger children may be out, right? But you could have somebody inside of your family do that for you. I did that for a while. I'll tell you my version of it. My version was I created my own delivery company. And what I mean by that is I just took a name. My delivery company's name was Express Delivery. I know, massively unique, but it was called Express Delivery. And I had those little crack and peel labels printed. So my pre-listing package, I put into a large envelope, and I had one of those crack and peel labels with a logo and Express Delivery on it, and I would stick that on it, and it would have my return address, and it would have my delivery address on there, and then I would have someone deliver the package on my behalf, but not on my behalf, on behalf of Express Delivery, because the impression I wanted to send was that I had hired a courier to deliver this information to their front door as quickly as possible, because it contributed to the wow factor. It contributed to the holy Christmas. Wow, this guy like went out of his way to get this stuff to us. And then I gave my employee scripts. And so on the way to the house, he would call, and if no one was home, the message he would leave is, hey, this is Joe from Express Delivery. I have a package for you from Rick Scott at Century 21 Landmark Properties. This was before my KW days, right? At Century 21 Landmark Properties. If you're still not home when I arrive at the property, please note it will be left on the front porch. Please note it will be left on, by the garage, so that they would know where to look for it. And if they did answer, the script was the same. This is Joe from Express Delivery. I'll be to you in about 5 minutes or so. I have a package from Rick Scott at Century 21 Landmark Properties. Will you be home to receive it? And we had a little clipboard so that people had to sign for it. I mean, we just made up a company. There was no LLC. There was no tax filings because the company didn't make any money, but the perception was that I had hired a courier. Do you see how that works? Do you see the impression it makes? So whether you do that or go a different route, just make sure it's not you. Now let's talk about timing of delivery. It is my opinion that the package should arrive within a half a business day of you confirming the appointment or setting the appointment. So a half business day means that if at 3:30 in the afternoon you confirm an appointment for a listing, well, by noon tomorrow, the package should arrive. If you confirm that appointment at 10:30 or 11 o'clock in the morning, well, by 5 or 6 o'clock that same day, the package should arrive. Which means you need to have a bunch of these packages ready to go. So that as you book listing appointments, you can just grab one. And again, if Robbie and I are doing like a barter system, I know his schedule, he knows mine. I would choose someone who's like around and who's in the office and who, not somebody who's not. Because I want that speed. Why a half business day? What's the point of that?
Something faster than overnight?
Yeah, so faster than overnight so that you have the courier version of this going on. And
Shows that you're responsive to the client's needs.
exactly right. It sends a message about how important they are, right? It sends a message that, again, this is not fly by night for you. You do this all the time because something doesn't arrive that quickly that wasn't pre-prepared and that didn't have a structure around it to have it move off of a shelf and into their hands in a short period of time. And it also feels as though, right, if at 11:30 someone hangs up the phone with you, setting an appointment, and by 4 o'clock their doorbell is ringing with a pre-listing package, to them, it feels like they literally just hung up the phone and the doorbell rang. Because those hours compress in their day. They're not thinking about you in real estate. So it feels like it's immediate. And it's the big wow, right? And if they're not home, just simply leave a message as to where you've left the package. I learned that the hard way. Part of my pre-listing package, I used to include snacks, because M&Ms are like fresh M&Ms, I think are probably one of the most delicious things on the planet. So I used to include fresh M&Ms, plain and peanut. This was before the time when they had 67 different versions of M&Ms. There was plain and there was peanut when I was doing this. So a plain and a peanut, and I left it outside at the front door, and I did that once in the heat. And so what they got was mush. And then I did it once at a house that was kind of too much in the woods, and I forgot to call them, and the raccoons got the package. So when I like, that's so weird. I wonder why they haven't called about that. And I called back and said, so just checking in on the pre-listing package. And they were like, so was it you who like had everything ripped to shreds all over our front yard? No, that was the raccoons. I did deliver the package though. So be careful, make sure they know where it's left so that you don't make foolish mistakes like I have. I wasn't kidding on day one when I told you that I would tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I have done everything wrong. If it's out there to be done wrong, I have done it wrong and learned from it. And so I get to tell you the faster, right way to do it. You can use me as a shortcut for stupidity, because I have done everything stupid and then done it right. Did they hire me? The raccoon people did hire me, yes. The melted M&Ms did not hire me. I guess they really liked M&Ms and they didn't want one big M&M, right? That was my argument. You just got a different version of the M&M. Some other things not to include in the pre-listing package, because I realized we didn't finish that. Don't include contracts or disclosures, like the actual forms that you would use. Mostly because I want you to be there with them when they're signing them, right? Because if they review contracts or disclosure forms without you there and you're not there to help answer questions, they could be turned off by something they think a contract says. And since you're not there, oftentimes they don't ask. You don't get a second bite at that apple. And so they've already moved on to somebody else because they didn't like what your contract said. I will tell you one of the things that I tried a really long time ago, after I merged my business with Debbie's, we started to do a mailing version of expireds. And we did this mailing version of expireds that said, you know, hey, I noticed that you came off the market. Sorry, we couldn't get you on the telephone. And again, we had these delivered as well. Please see the contents of this package for how we can get your house back on the market and get it sold. You know, we specialize in selling homes that didn't sell the first or second time around. I lost my train of thought as to why I'm telling you this story.
What not to include is where you started.
Oh, yes. And so we ultimately decided for a while that when we were doing this this delivery of expired packages, that we would test something out, and we would have a pre-filled out listing contract in the package, and the bottom of our letter said, in order to facilitate the speed of getting your house back on the market, right? To get your house on the market as quickly as possible, to not miss the best buyer, please just sign the enclosed contract and fax it back to us. We took 3 listings that way. People who got our stuff and said, oh my goodness, we have to be back on the market, signed our contract and faxed it back to us. The first one that came through, I nearly fell off my chair. I never thought it would work, but we figured, oh, we'll try it. But more times than not, that didn't work. And what we learned over time was sending contracts, especially to people who have not been on the market before, because people who have been on the market before, like expireds, they already signed a version of somebody else's contract. So we don't encourage you to send contracts. The other thing you shouldn't send, don't send competitive comparative information. Don't send info that shows you versus another agent. Don't send info that shows your company versus another company. Have that data, but bring it with you. That's stuff that you show at the consultation to make whatever points you need to make, and then you take back. Simply because that stuff being out there, it can fall into the wrong hands. Not that you would create a graph that wasn't honest and truthful, but if you didn't source it properly, and again, I speak from experience. I one time left, I knew I was in competition for this listing between me and another agent. I ran my numbers versus her numbers, and I included that in my package that I delivered to them. They knew her, they didn't know me. They gave her my package, and I didn't source it properly. And she got all bent out of shape, and she called and complained, and she called the broker, and she called the board, and la-di-da-di-da. Everything I had said was 100% true. I just didn't source it well on the forms. So she didn't know how I had compiled the data. And it was just way more trouble than it was worth, right? So I encourage you, don't send that kind of information in a pre-listing package either. Use that at the consultation instead. The last bit I'll say about pre-listing packages. Yes, Carla. Is that a question, Carla? No?
No, sorry.
Okay, no worries. The last thing I'll say about pre-listing packages, if you can get, one of the things that we would ask for a while, we asked this to everybody, was do you work locally? And if so, would you mind if we delivered a pre-marketing package to you in the office? Because our pre-marketing package was not just some papers, it was a basket. And the basket had in it all of our paperwork, it had snacks in it, it had some flowers in it. If we knew that the people had children, it had coloring books and crayons in it. If we knew they had a dog, you know, sometimes you're on the phone with someone, you hear the dog barking in the background. We would have our little dog treats that we would include, right? Because sometimes winning the listing, you win the listing through children and pets. Sometimes that is 100% true. I will say that I'm not a big pet guy. I love your pets. I just don't want them for myself. And when I would go to a listing appointment and the dog would greet me, even though I'm not a huge pet guy, oh, I'd love that dog and let him lick me and rub his hair all over my brand new suit from the dry cleaner. And because again, the way you win business sometimes is through children and pets, right? So I couldn't necessarily give the impression that I didn't want their dog near me if that was going to be a turnoff, right? All these things matter. I'm just telling you my experiences. All these things matter. And so, so we would do this basket with all this kind of stuff in it, and then do balloons. And the homework, I forget who said it before. I can go back. Was it Jefferson who said it? I think it might have been. Oh, Oscar said it, and then Jefferson actually followed up on it. It was Oscar and Jefferson who asked the similar type questions before. So the homework piece of this, right, with a pre-listing package, is you have certain documents which you include as homework. What their experience living in the house was, right? They're gonna talk about the house. They lived there, so have them start to write the marketing copy on your behalf. And so the document says something to the effect of, you know what, to get started in our partnership together, if you could please complete this before the first time we meet. And it just asks a bunch of questions. What have been your favorite parts about living here? What are your favorite memories? Why did you buy this house 7 years ago when you purchased it, right? And so you have all these questions that they start to fill out because now you're working together, you're creating the relationship. right? Sellers almost always want to tell you all the things that they've done to the house, even if it's not relevant. So we just gave them a form to do that. Please deliver us all the improvements, all the information, everything we need to know on this 2-page form. And then our third form was tell us all the people who serviced the property, right? We want to know to be able to pass that along to the next buyers, or if we need to contact them. So tell us who the landscaping people are and who services your oil tank and who, all that stuff. So that they're writing, really being a part of this whole listing process. And the listing process is with you. My favorite piece of seller homework was the keys, right? And we had a little cardboard cutout that went into our basket that said, seller homework. Please be certain to make us 2 copies of your front door key prior to the next time we see you. Now, why would we do that? Why would we ask them for keys?
That pretty much solidifies the deal, right? If they're going to give you keys, you're the listing agent.
You got it. That's one of the best assumptive closes I think I ever used, right? Was my little cardboard cutout of a key. Please make me 2 copies of the key to your front door. When I would arrive at the appointment and I'd be like, okay, so, seller homework. And they're like, oh, here are the keys. And I'm like, done. Right? Because again, they've kind of bought into me and my whole program already because they've already made copies of the key. They're not giving me copies of the front door key and then going to hire somebody else. That would be bizarre, right? And yet I knew if they didn't make copies of the key, now I had a little bit more work to do. Go ahead, Donna.
And when you do walk in there and they're handing you the keys, and it does happen, you pull out the listing agreement at that moment and get the signature, and then you have the rest of the appointment.
You got it. You got it. When an assumptive close works, well, it's an assumptive close. It's not an assumptive, let's go and do everything we would have normally done anyway, right? It's a close. And so the definition of a close is to just assist someone in making a faster decision, right? And so when you do that, and they make the decision, well, now we're going to jump right in, fill out that contract, and then we have the conversation about pricing and positioning secondarily, right? Yeah, Lisa says, always know when to stop selling. And so it's funny, I used to tell this story longer ago than 4 years ago, and now, of course, he's our president. And so if you ever watched a long time ago, Donald Trump's reality show, The Apprentice, it's season 1, I think, of The Apprentice. They went to Atlantic City, and both teams had to get as many entries into a contest where they were giving away a car as possible, and he stuck them in his the front entrance and the front entrance of each of his casinos to have this whole thing going on. And the one team decided that what they would do was hire some child star. Frankly, I don't remember who the child star was, but this kid was like 13 years old. And if I could remember who it was, you'd all know who I'm talking about. I just don't remember who it is. And so the team members are meeting with this child star and the child star's management. And they're selling and selling and selling, telling the child star why it really makes sense for him, for no money, to stand in front of this car at the entrance to this casino and hawk the raffle that they were trying to do. And so the kid listens and says, yeah, you know what, I'll do it. And they kept going. Well, but here's another reason why you should do it. And he's like, yeah, no, it sounds good. I'll do it. Well, and you know what, just in case that's not enough, here are 7 other reasons why we think it would be perfect for you in your career. And the kid finally turned to his manager and said, haven't I said yes like 3 different times? Like, and looked at the team members selling him and said, you need to know when to stop selling. You need to know when to stop asking the question. That is true in all sales. It's true in life. Kenny Rogers told us, know when to hold them, know when to fold them, right? Know when to keep talking and know when to cierra la boca. Nice and tight. Any other questions on pre-listing packages? All right. I will give you examples of those 2 packages that we have for you on Wednesday, first thing. Let's do this for our remaining half hour. Let's dive into the listing consultation scripts. I'm going to set the stage for you for these scripts, and then we will fill in the blanks on Wednesday. I promise you we'll fill in the blanks because we are skipping over some stuff to dive into the mastering of the listing consultation.
Hey, Rick, where do I find those scripts?
So they were emailed by me to everyone, probably at about 3:30 or so. It was late in the day.
I did not get them, Rick.
Same. I didn't receive them either.
I did get them. I have them right here.
So clearly Neil's is my favorite.
I didn't receive it as well.
I got them.
I got them.
All right, so here's what I'm going to ask. If those of you who did get them would push the forward button in your email, and those of you who did not get them, just put your email address in the chat box. Donna, if you would forward to whoever goes first. Niels, if you would forward to whoever shows up second. Trying to see who else got them. Alicia, did you get them?
Yes.
Alicia, if you could do Oscar.
Okay, what's Oscar's last name?
So in the chat box, it's Oscar.Enriquez.
Okay.
And then Donna, also do Selnev. And then Niels, if you could also do Robbie. That should be everybody, I think. I'm not sure if we got Lisa, but David, you can forward to Lisa. Or Lisa, you can turn around. So while you're getting them, thank you. I appreciate you guys helping me out on that. I'm not sure why only half of you received them. What I will make sure I do is I will print this chat and make sure that I have these email addresses on my, do you guys not get my mass emails? Because I sent probably 3 of them today. About MegaCamp, about, okay, well,
So,
I gotta find out what the story is on that.
so I just sent to Nikki. Who else am I sending it to? Robbie?
Robbie, please.
I haven't received them yet, Rick.
Did someone send to David?
Mine's not working.
Okay, so Donna sent it to you, David.
I'll do it again if you didn't get it.
Thank you.
DC Lee at KW.
Sorry, Rick. I think I just missed something. The generator died, and I had to go start it back up again. Or are we supposed to be doing something over the last couple minutes?
Oh yeah. We had asked everyone to prepare either an up tempo or a ballad, and we were just up to you. So it was your turn. Did you do an up tempo or a ballad?
I don't think you want either.
Something from Frozen 2, maybe. I'm sure you've seen it 700 times.
At least today.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, no, we just realized that a lot of the documents didn't make it to half the attendees. So we were just making sure that everyone had them.
Okay.
Do you have the documents? Ryan, you got them probably?
The mastering the listing consultation one?
Yes, sir.
I did. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so if you haven't received them, just raise your hand. Did someone send to Jennifer?
No, I can though.
Did someone send to Selnev? Saved43@gmail.com. Okay, so guys, they are on their way. They may be, the internet may be a little slow, but they are, they are on their way. Here's what I'll do while we're making sure we have documents. And you have my apologies. That is my fault. Maria is on vacation this week, and she often takes care of that for me. And it got to be 3:15 or so, and I realized that she wasn't here and I hadn't taken care of it. So they got sent late and to my email list and not hers. So that's my fault. I own that. Sorry about that. So one of the things that I will spend a little time doing first is I will pitch MegaCamp to you. MegaCamp is an event. It's our kind of half-year convention that we typically travel down to Austin to spend two days or so with Gary and his panels of top agents from around the country on everything under the sun. This year, due to our current circumstances, MegaCamp will be more available to more people than it ever has been because you don't have to go to Austin, Texas. So for those of you who are not receiving my emails, I sent one over the weekend that said you could save $1,200 or something like that because you don't have to buy a plane ticket, you don't have to stay in a hotel, you don't have to eat out. You can attend MegaCamp right from the comfort of your own office or living room, right? And so I encourage you, one of the things that Gary will spend, it's the 15th, 16th, and 17th of September. One of the things that he will spend much of his time doing with us is providing perspective. One of the things that I feel so blessed to be able to participate in are my masterminds with Gary. And I thank you all for that because not everyone gets to do that. I'm in a group for the top 200 market centers in the country. Gary only talks to the top 200 operating partners. And that has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with you. So I appreciate everything that you do that allows me to be in that group. And so the time we get to spend with him, even if it's not a strategy or a script or something that I leave and say like, wow, that was a great idea. Spending time with Gary Keller allows me perspective because one of the things he's great at is providing perspective, business perspective. I don't know what the schedule is for those 3 days, John, yet. It's the 15th, 16th, and 17th, and the agenda itself is still on its way. They'll be relatively full days because Gary will spend probably the mornings with us, one on all of us, and then bring in panels of top agents on different topics. And it's every topic you can imagine. If you want panelists who are specializing in short sales, they'll be there. If you want people who are specializing in social media, they'll be there. If you want people who are specializing in expireds, they'll be there. Database, they'll be there. Online events versus in-person events, they'll be there. Open houses, they'll be there. New construction, they'll be there. You name it. I would encourage you to go to megacamp.kw.com. I'll type that in the chat so you know where to go. It's megacamp.kw.com and register yourself. Early bird pricing ends today. So you've got to finish with me and jump on and register. It's $109, guys. It's the best $109 that you'll ever spend. Most of you spend that much in coffee each month. So don't go to Starbucks in August and attend MegaCamp in September. That would be, from a business perspective, I get no points. I get no version of that $109 if you attend or you don't attend. I can simply tell you that from my experience in this organization, it's an awesome event, and it allows you to spend time with top flight people learning really top flight stuff. Okay, so I've now sold that sucker. Does everyone have their documents?
Yep.
Okay. So the first piece of the mastering the listing consultation is going to be confirm the appointment. So the first step in this process doesn't actually happen when you're face to face with the seller prospect. This is going to happen the night before you have your appointment. Now, if you remember, we talked about someone else delivering your pre-listing package. What do you think I'm going to ask you to do with the confirming the appointment script? You got it. Have somebody else do that on your behalf. So again, if Robbie and I are bartering back and forth to deliver packages, we may just decide to confirm each other's appointments as well. Or again, have a spouse or an adult child do it. If you hire someone to do it, great, but I encourage you to just kind of barter for time until the volume picks up enough so that you can afford to have maybe your administrative assistant at some point do that on your behalf. But if Robbie and I are doing it back and forth, here's what that sounds like. Yes, David? No? Okay. So I'm just gonna run through this real quick so you hear what it sounds like. Good afternoon, Mr. Seller. This is Rick Scott calling from Robbie Vaza's office. Vaza or Voza? You can just say long O or short.
It's Voza or Votsa if you really want to get there.
Ah, Votsa. Got it.
Voza is good. Thank you.
This is Rick Scott calling from Robbie Votsa's office at Keller Williams Realty. How are you today? So somebody just play my seller.
Great.
Excellent. Hey, listen, I was just calling to confirm your appointment with Robbie for tomorrow at 4 o'clock in our offices at 404 Main Street. Robbie's really looking forward to meeting with you to discuss the sale of your home and wondered if there was anything specific that you wanted to be certain that he covered.
No, not really.
Okay, great. Well, then I will be sure to let Robbie know that you're excited to see him. Before I let you go, were you able to review Robbie's pre-consultation package that was delivered to you?
I was.
Excellent. I guess, and did you have any questions on the content in that package?
No, not really, except I have to finish some homework.
You do. Thank you for bringing that up. If you could, there are 3 pages of homework in there. If you would just be certain to have that completed before you meet with Robbie tomorrow, he will look to collect that when he sees you.
Sure thing.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So Robbie's really excited to meet with you and looks forward to seeing you tomorrow to list your property. In the meantime, if there's anything that we can do for you, please do not hesitate to call. You have a great afternoon.
You as well. Thank you for the call.
Sure thing. Bye. All right. So it's just a simple confirmation of appointment script. It's a simple reminder about that pre-listing package. And you know, in that scenario, Neil's brought it to the table, oh, I have homework to do. If they don't bring it up, which is often the case, you don't skip that one sentence that says, and were you able to complete the homework? Because the whole reason you're asking about the review of the pre-listing package is because you want to make sure that they did the homework, because that's the important piece, right? And I love the way the script says, look, you know, Robbie's going to review those with you tomorrow. It's kind of saying, look, don't be unprepared, right? It's not like when he gets there, he's not going to ask about them. He's going to review them with you. So make sure that you've taken a look at those, right? What else do you notice about that script?
It's not you, it's your assistant.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. So again, you have people for that, right? You're sending the message. The perception is that you are bigger than you maybe currently are. What else do you notice?
You're confirming the time and the address of the meeting.
You absolutely are. There's one other thing that I want to make sure that you recognize from this script. It's an assumptive close. So one of the things that I said was Robbie will look to review those with you when you meet with him to list the property tomorrow, right? And so that's that assumptive close. We're not meeting just to you know, gee, it was nice to meet you. I'm not meeting to see like how firm your handshake is. We're meeting to have him list the property, right? And so we're sending that message, somebody else, a third party, sending that message that when Robbie comes tomorrow, he's going to review all this stuff and list the property. Make sense? Really important that you understand the psychology around these scripts and the expectations that you're laying, the groundwork you're laying. Because I will tell you, when you use them, they work. I can also tell you that when you don't use them, they don't work so well. So both things are true. So we don't have to beat the horse dead about why you're having someone else call, right? But do also take my advice when I tell you, if you make the phone call yourself, you don't get as much of a wow factor. You also get asked questions that evening. It happens almost every single time. So remove yourself from that. Appear bigger than you may currently be. Send the message you have people for that. Send the message of professionalism and structure, and I do this all the time. And make sure that when you've gone through the trouble of sending a pre-listing package ahead of time, don't skip this step and not remind the people about the pre-listing package. Because if you skip that step altogether, no confirmation of appointment, or you don't have people confirm the pre-listing package, then you get there and you ask these questions and it's too late, right? First of all, one of the things you do if you get there and you ask them about it and they haven't done it, is you've made them feel wrong. And one of the things that you have to avoid at all costs is making a seller feel wrong, right? You need to make them feel right. You need to continue to help them feel right. And feeling right makes them feel good about themselves. And for interesting reasons, they equate that to you. It's because they're talking to you when they feel good about being right. Right? Again, it's the psychology behind these scripts. All right, let's get through setting the stage before we finish tonight. And if it's all right with you, in the interest of time, I will take that one as well as the real estate agent. And if someone could just play my seller, that would be lovely. Now, I am going to assume that this meeting is happening in the office. I know that we're doing a number of Zoom conversations of late. Here's what's interesting. I had a mastermind today with the rainmakers in our market centers, and those rainmakers are people who lead teams, and so it's just me and the rainmakers. And one of them said, you know, it's interesting. I've lost a couple of listings lately, and I'm struggling as to why. And we're masterminding around why that might be and what's different. And one of the things that's different for this particular agent, she said, you know what, we do it all via Zoom now. I don't think I'll ever go back to in-person consultations because we have this new medium that is acceptable now because of the current environment. She said, I do go to the house to offer staging tips post signature, and I do go to the house to try to check the house out, but then I have the Zoom appointment, the consultation, online. And a couple of people, two of the other rainmakers said, you know, you might want to look at that. If that's the thing that's different, you may not realize how much more powerful you are in person versus on Zoom. And I have to say, when one of the other rainmakers said that, I thought, you know, that's interesting. I wonder if one of the reasons that, because the question we then asked her was, are you doing Zoom and is someone coming in person after you? It's a whole lot harder to say no to somebody in person than it is on Zoom, right? On Zoom, I don't even have to wait for you guys to unmute yourselves. If I want to be done, I can say, oh, you know what? I am so sorry. I think I forgot about an appointment. This has been so great. Thank you so much. And click end, and I'm done. I'm off. Oh, I think I hear the baby crying. I've got to run. I'll call you back. Take care. Boom, and you're done. And so it was interesting that the discussion around, we don't know for certain that that's one of the things that's causing her to lose more listings than normal. And yet it is one of the things that's different. So we challenged her over the course of the next 2 to 3 weeks to not do a Zoom follow-up, to do an in-person follow-up, have the people come into the office or go to their house, right? We may have to give up some of the come to the office stuff right now because people may be afraid to come to the office. I get it. And yet if they'll have you in their house with all the proper protocols, we encouraged her to try that and see if her numbers started to rebound. So we'll get back to you on that. But it was one of the only things that was different. So just for what it's worth. So the setting the stage, the setup here is you are in the office, and we're just going to keep it the way we normally would do it, where we'd ask them back to the office to have this consultation, right? Take them out of of the comfort of their home, right? People get kind of rooted into their house when you have the conversation in their house. They get to look around and decide that the house may be worth more because they're sitting in it. They're more comfortable, so therefore they may be less apt to pay attention to some of the things that they don't necessarily 100% agree with, right? So you want to have more of a business meeting, so we like to pull them into a business environment to have that business meeting. So again, somebody just unmute and play my seller, and I will go through the setting the stage script.
I'll be happy to do it, Rick.
Great. Hello, David. How are you?
I'm great. And you?
You know what? I am so great. Thank you for asking. Did you find us okay this evening?
Yes, I did.
Perfect. Hey, before we get started, can I interest you in something to drink, some coffee or water?
Oh, I'd love a cup of coffee.
Excellent. And so I'll either go and get that, or if I have someone around, I can have that delivered. So David, we have a lot of exciting things to discuss today. So if it's all right with you, what I'd like to do is just jump right in and get started. Would that be all right?
Sounds great.
Perfect. So David, I have a great deal of time. No, I don't have a great deal of time. I have a great deal of respect for the investment of your time. In fact, we have only 3 goals for today. Number 1, we're going to review your motivation to sell this house now and agree on a price that will cause it to sell. Number 2, we'll take a moment and I'll answer any questions that you may have. Number 3, we'll decide today whether you want to hire me. Does that make sense in terms of agenda?
I understand completely.
Perfect. So I have 3 critical questions for you as we get started. Number 1, do you really want to sell your home?
Yes, I have a new job and I have to move out of state.
Excellent. Number 2, are you willing to price your home to sell, or do you want it to sit on the market?
Well, you know, it's a big investment for me and I really want to make sure I can maximize it. So I'm moving to California. It's very expensive out there, so I need to get as much as I can out of this house.
Agreed. And number 3, do you want me to handle the sale for you?
That sounds good. But first, I'd like to talk about the price.
Got it. Excellent. Well, I do hope to be able to earn your trust. And so that's the script. It's pretty simple, right? It just simply sets the stage. So let's kind of go through it. Thank you, David, for that. Let's go through it a little bit. You have the first piece, which is exactly like the buyer script, right? How are you? Did you find us okay? Can I get you something? Respect your time. Let's get started, right? It's the same exact script as on the buyer side. I think on the buyer side, we asked about turning the phone off. Here, we're diving right in. Remember, setting business rapport, especially when people are leaving their home or leaving their kids at home and coming into the office, you're going to have them wanting you to get right to it. And so we get from that into the agenda piece, right? The 3 goals, that's the agenda that's set for the evening. Number 1, review your motivation to sell the house now and agree on a price that will cause it to sell. Number 2, take a moment and I'll answer any questions you may have. How long are we going to spend answering questions?
As long as it takes.
I love that. I love that from a customer service perspective. However, what's the expectation that we're setting from the script?
A quick decision.
Right? A moment. Specifically, a moment. You know, Hello Dolly? It only takes a moment. You know that song? No? All right. Any musical theater fans? All right. Go and listen to Hello Dolly. You'll know what I'm talking about. Cornelius Hackle sings it at the end of Act 2. All right. So the reason we throw that out there, we'll take just a moment to answer questions, is because we've given them something that should answer most of their questions that they've reviewed before I even got there. What did we give them?
The pre-consultation package.
Exactly right, the pre-consultation package, right? And so again, I want you to see how all these things fit together. When you send that pre-consultation, that pre-listing package, and it goes through and shows them the process and shows them some about you and gives them testimonials and gives them some marketing examples and talks about a social media strategy and talks about an MLS strategy and talks about some of these things, and it's been reviewed, many of the questions that they typically bring up at a consultation have already been answered. Now, clearly, if they have more than just a moment's worth of questions, you'll address whatever questions they have. That doesn't mean that we're going to say, oh, you know what, sorry, you've used your allotted time. No more questions. However, the expectation that we're setting in the script is we'll take a moment and answer any questions you have. Remember, people always want to look good and be right. And so if you're setting the expectation that the question and answer period is a shorter period of time, right, that sets the expectation that they should have a lot of these answers and refers them then back to the listing consultation package. And then, of course, number 3 is the most important one. We'll decide tonight or today, depending on when you're meeting, we'll decide tonight whether you want to hire me. Does that make sense? Now you'll notice I jumped through the paragraph because the script is, we'll decide whether you want to hire me. Does that make sense? Sometimes, if people react to that, right, David just said it, that sounded like a good plan. Awesome, I couldn't agree more. And so we moved forward. Sometimes people react to that, right? We'll decide whether you want to hire me. Oh my goodness, well, And so there may be times where if people are confused by that, you may have to outline that a little bit more, which is why the other piece of that script exists. But for the most part, you're simply setting the stage that this is a hiring consultation. We're having a hiring conversation this evening. This is not about me painting you a price. It's not about me talking about the marketing. It's about us making a decision about hiring tonight. It's the expectation I'm setting, just like on the buy side when you set the hiring expectation. And then there's 3 critical questions. Number 1 and number 2 are motivation questions. Number 3 is a close. So we hit motivation, motivation, close. Do you really want to sell your house? And David said yes, and then he restated the reasons why. Like he's moving to Atlanta, he's got a new job to start. He's out of here. Are you willing to price the house to sell, or do you want it to sit on the market? Do you notice that we didn't give a 3rd or 4th option there? It's either price the house to sell or have it sit on the market. Now, if I wanted to, when David said, well, you know what we've got, because he didn't really answer that question. He gave me a long version of wanting to get it sold, right? I could have said, so, you know, David, without putting words in your mouth, it sounds to me like you're willing to get this job done. And so if you had to choose between pricing the house to sell and having it sit on the market, it sounds like getting it sold is really your main motivation here. And yet early on, I'm going to tell you these 3 questions, their answer is their answer, and it doesn't need to be a whole lot of conversation around it, right? You don't need to objection handle things here. You're just asking the questions and getting some feedback. The most important one, do you want me to handle the sale for you? And I love David's answer, mostly because it's the realest answer that you will hear. Because sellers don't want to offend you by saying, are you kidding? How could I possibly answer that question now? You just got here. They don't normally say that. They normally say, well, you know, I mean, it certainly is a possibility, could be, you know, so far so good, and yet let's get a little further into our meeting. That is mostly the answer you will hear. So he gave you just a really real answer. Would it surprise you to know, and I will end tonight on this note, would it surprise you to know that if you will ask that question at this point in your consultation, which is like 4 minutes in, right? They just got there. It's 4 minutes into the whole consultation, and you're closing for the listing. If you will ask that question at this point, 3 out of 10 times, sellers say yes. Do you want me to handle the sale for you? 3 out of 10 times, if you will ask that early on, they will say yes. And at that moment, as Donna said before, when they say yes, you say, awesome. The only thing we need to do, the first thing we need to do is go through some contractual paperwork. Let's get that out of the way and then get to the important stuff of you and I having a conversation around where you're going to position the property. And so when you ask the question at the end of this setting the stage and they say yes, which 3 out of 10 times they will, you leapfrog over the rest of it, get to the contract, sign the contract, and then have a sit down conversation around what the positioning and the pricing will look like in partnership together, because you've already decided to work together.
Don't you think that the number is the number because they were in that place as opposed to you asking the question? Because there are a lot of people who are they're really treating this like an exercise. Like, I'm going to go call in 5 agents and I'm going to rake you through the calls and ask you all these questions and try to be, I mean, I don't know what they're trying to find. I'm not sure what it is that they're looking for. But there are a lot of people who really have already determined, I'm not making up my mind today. And they'll just point blank say it. I'm not deciding today because I called up 5 agents and I'm lining you up and bringing them through, and you know what I mean? So just because you ask the question, I don't think it's going to elicit that response. I think it could if they are ready. But if their agenda is already that they want to talk to multiple people and compare and contrast, you're not going to change that.
Yeah, and so here's how I'll answer that. I disagree. I disagree because I've lived it, right? First and foremost, 3 out of 10 times, that's only 30% of the time that they will say yes, right? That means 7 out of 10 times, they'll give you more of David's answer. You seem like a great guy, but let's get to the end here. I want more information. I want to have a conversation with you. Sometimes, and that's probably 1 or 2 out of 10, they will say something more like what Ann just said. Well, I'm not making up my decision this evening. I'm not making my decision this evening. Great. And so I note that down and we move forward with the script. Because what I have learned over time is that people who have absolutely definitely made up their mind not to make a decision that night, 30 minutes from now, when I'm finished putting them through the process and have closed 2 or 3 more times, sign their listing paperwork with me. Right? So people make up their minds when they make up their minds. And I absolutely believe that with script work and practice and skill, you can change that outcome. I know that because I've done it. Right? So it's a tough spot to stop simply because this conversation deserves us moving on to the next couple of steps in the consultation. But I promise you, if you will tune back in on Wednesday, we will pick up from here and walk through the rest of the steps in this consultation, that by the time we get to the end, most people, most of the time, if you've done a great job, don't give you the, I'm not making up my mind tonight. Because what you haven't heard me say yet is, I'm curious, would it be helpful now that we've kind of determined moving forward together, right? Because they're going to come up with the price. They're not waiting for me to give a price. They're coming up with the price. Would it be helpful now that we've determined the positioning of your property? And I've already asked the question, other than you having some other appointments that you might want to see, is there any reason you wouldn't hire me as your listing agent? And when they say, well, no, but we did want to see those other people. Great, I'm curious, would it be helpful now that we've determined that you'd like to hire me as your listing agent if I simply called your other appointments and canceled them on your behalf? Because here's what I've learned. Most of the time, the reason that sellers want to see other people after you've done the job that you've done is because they don't want to insult them or they don't want to call and cancel themselves. So I just got to the point of saying, well, so then I'll just call and cancel your appointments for you. Who were you seeing? And I would give them paperwork. I would step out on their front porch and cancel the appointments. So understand that there is, this process brings people from where they start to a different place when you do it well. Does it work 100% of the time? Of course not, because nothing works 100% of the time, right? And yet I will tell you, as a skilled listing agent, you can move people from the I'm not signing a piece of paper tonight to someplace else. It's like a skilled team leader, right? Your team leaders are skilled at what they do. And when Dan and Steve and Carlos sit down and have conversations with people, oftentimes they say, I'm not leaving Coldwell Banker. I'm happy to listen to your spiel, but I'm not leaving Coldwell Banker. And by the time they get to the other side of the conversation with our team leaders, they're like, okay, wait, so when can are there papers I can sign now? I didn't realize I was missing all of this, right? And so we move them from where they are to where they want to be. I'll give you more and it'll make better sense when we have a through line of the next steps of this process, which we will bring to you 4 o'clock on Wednesday. Guys, thanks for the extra 7 minutes. Have a lovely evening. Enjoy your dinner.
Quick question.
Thanks, Rick.
Were you going to send out examples of the pre-list package we could use as starting points?
I'm going to show you those on Wednesday.
Perfect.
One of them is in Command, and I'm not exactly sure how to access it, so I'm going to bring them both to you on Wednesday, so you have that available to work, and your homework is going to be working with them from Wednesday to Friday to bring back some personalized version on Friday.
Thank you so much.
You are quite welcome. Have a great evening, guys. See you tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Thanks, Rick.
Sure thing. Bye-bye.